places to visit in Kyoto. 1. Gion. Gion is Kyoto's most famous geisha district, located around Shijo Avenue between Yasaka Shrine in the east and the Kamo River in the west. It is filled with shops, restaurants and tea houses, where geisha and maiko, geisha apprentices, entertain. Gion attracts tourists with its high concentration of traditional wooden makiya merchant houses. This neighborhood is known for its charming historic features: historic tea houses, willow-lined roads, kaiseki, Japanese haute cuisine, restaurants, wooden ryokan, Japanese guest houses, and shops selling local crafts and antiques. But all of those things are secondary to Gion's real source of fame, the geisha. Contrary to Western belief, geisha are not prostitutes. A geisha's primary role is entertainment. She is hired to provide diversions at dinner parties and banquets in the form of singing, dancing, games and conversation. But they are more than mere performers. Geisha are living, breathing gatekeepers of ancient Japanese culture. 2. Arashiyama. Arashiyama is in the far west of Kyoto, tucked along the base of the Arashiyama Mountains. It's a fair distance from the center of Kyoto. Arashiyama is a quaint neighborhood surrounded by trees and mountains on the western edge of Kyoto. The neighborhood's most iconic landmark is the wooden Togetsu-kyo Bridge, which has spanned the Katsura River since 1934. It makes a great spot for admiring cherry blossoms or changing fall foliage, depending on the season, though some visitors seem less than impressed with the bridge. 3. Nishiki Market. The market is a narrow, 5-block-long shopping street lined by more than 100 shops and restaurants. Known as Kyoto's Kitchen, this lively retail market specializes in all things food-related, like fresh seafood, produce, knives and cookware. It is a great place to find seasonal foods and Kyoto specialties, such as Japanese sweets, pickles, dried seafood and sushi. Nishiki Market has a pleasant but busy atmosphere that is inviting to those who want to explore the variety of culinary delights that Kyoto is famous for. The stores found throughout the market range in size from small narrow stalls to larger 2-story shops. Most specialize in a particular type of food, and almost everything sold at the market is locally produced and procured. 4. Nijo Castle. Nijo Castle was built in 1603 as the Kyoto residence of Tokugawa Ieyasu, the first shogun of the Edo period, 1603 to 1867. His grandson Iemitsu completed the castle's palace buildings 23 years later and further expanded the castle by adding a 5-story castle keep. After the Tokugawa shogunate fell in 1867, Nijo Castle was used as an imperial palace for a while before being donated to the city and opened up to the public as a historic site. Its palace buildings are arguably the best surviving examples of castle-palace architecture of Japan's feudal era, and the castle was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1994. Surviving in its original form, the palace consists of multiple separate buildings that are connected with each other by corridors with so-called nightingale floors, as they squeak when stepped upon as a security measure against intruders. 5. Philosopher's Walk. Philosopher's Walk is a favorite spot for cherry blossom viewing in Kyoto, known in Japanese as Tetsugaku no Michi. It is most visited when the cherries blossom in late March or early April, on hot summer evenings for its fireflies, and again in November when the leaves turn color. There are some shops and restaurants and stores selling the local ginger cookies, but for the most part it has remained understated. Most of the buildings along the path are private homes. The path, which is closed to cars and motorcycle traffic, gets its name from Nishida Kitaro, 1870 to 1945, a Kyoto University professor of philosophy, who used to stroll and meditate on the path. 6. Kinkaku-ji, Golden Pavilion. Kinkaku-ji, or the Temple of the Golden Pavilion, is the most popular tourist attraction in Japan and Kyoto. The pavilion was originally built as a retirement villa for Shogun Ashikaga Yoshimitsu in the late 14th century. Unfortunately, the pavilion was burnt down in 1950 by a young monk who had become obsessed with it. 5 years later, the temple was rebuilt as an exact copy of the original. Emphasis is placed on the building and surrounding gardens being in harmony with one another. The pavilion is covered in gold leaf, which highlights the reflection of the pavilion in the pond and the pond's reflection on the building. 7. Ginkaku-ji, Silver Pavilion. The Silver Pavilion is not actually silver, though it was intended to be. Shogun Ashikaga Yoshimasa, who built Ginkaku-ji in 1482 as his retirement villa, died before he could swathe the structure in silver leaf. The main pavilion, which was converted into a Zen shrine, sits overlooking a glassy pond surrounded by trees. its lush garden called the Sea of Silver Sand. If visitors continue up along the path to the back of the garden, they'll enjoy a stunning view of the temple grounds as well as the city below. 8. Kyoto International Manga Museum. The museum focuses on a very current form of Japanese art. Manga is a style of comics that exploded in popularity during the post-World War II period. It has steadily been gaining worldwide exposure in the past 60 years. The museum, which opened in 2006, showcases a massive collection of manga, around 300,000 items, from famous works like Astro Boy to more obscure comics by non-Japanese artists.